Hey, so Zillow says our home is worth $637.
No way, that's way too high. Redfin says our house is worth $576.
Yeah, they're smoking something over there because that is way too low.
Do you know why Zillow's high?
Yeah, it's the old closet ploy.
I am off to Munich. Best in genius. The old closet ploy.
What the heck's a closet ploy? Zillow says my house is worth $60,000 more than Redfin says my house is worth. Which one of them is right? We're gonna find out.
How do we know who's right?
Well, I'm gonna show you how they get their estimates. I'll show you why they get it wrong so many times, and then I'll show you how you can estimate your own house.
And then we'll explain the closet ploy.
Will you stop calling it that?
I really must congratulate you. If there's one thing I do enjoy, it's a good closet ploy.
Okay, listen to what Zillow says.
All right.
In major metro areas around the country, from Austin to Atlanta and Cincinnati to San Diego, the Zestimate for on-market homes is within 20% of the actual selling price more than 99% of the time.
20%? I'm not sure I would brag about that. I'm not even sure I know what that means. 20% like either way?
I don't know. I mean, within 20%. You would think that would be 10% high or 10% low, but I guess if it's within 20%, it could also be 20% too high or 20% too low.
Yeah.
But that
would be huge.
That would be crazy. Anyway, it's what they said. I don't know what it means.
So what about Raleigh?
Okay, so in Raleigh, 85% of their estimates were within 5% of the actual sale price, so a little bit closer. And it varies by city. Like some cities are closer, some cities are farther away. But that means that with Raleigh's median price of $415,000, that they're about $21,000 off, or for the median price in our town, Holly Springs, it'd be about $31,000 off.
I still wouldn't be bragging about being $30,000 off. Is Redfin any better than Zillow?
Well, they say their estimates are. How do you say estimate when you've been saying Zestimate? They should call it a restimate.
A restimate.
Okay, Redfin says that their estimates are better than Zillow's. They said that half of their homes came within 2.1% of their estimate, but the other 50% were much further off, it's kind of the same as Zillow. So they say that 97% of their estimates within 20% of the final sale price. So for the time being, a human is still a lot better than an AI model, but the AI models are actually doing some things right. So we're going to kind of go through what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong.
And we'll talk about the closet ploy.
We're going to look at the Restimate and the Zestimate on my personal property so you can see what the algorithms are doing right.
What do they do right?
Well, the first thing they do is they start by pulling comps, and that's the first thing that any person's going to do when they're trying to find the price of a home. They're going to look at comps.
All right, so explain a comp to us.
Okay, so a comp is just realtor slang for a comparable property, and the first thing we do is we pick our comps, and then we do a basic square footage adjustment to them.
So you take price of one house divided by the square footage and then multiply that by the square footage in your house?
No, absolutely not. So that's the thing that everybody always wants to do when they're trying to estimate the price of their own home. So what we do is we back out all of the features of your house, and when we do a square footage adjustment, we're just comparing the square footage of the floors and walls, just the basics. So for example, if you have a 3,000 square foot house and there's a comp that's 3,500 square feet, a lot of people want to say that 3,500 square foot comp sold for $200 a square foot, let's just say for a round number. And so for my 3,000 square foot house is worth $600,000 at $200 a square foot. But that's not the way it works, because think about it. That 3,500 square foot house, what if it has, a big kitchen with sub-zero appliances? It's got a wine fridge. It's got a massive screened-in porch. It's got a third-car garage bay, and your house doesn't. And it's got like 4 bathrooms, and your house doesn't have any of these things. It has a basic kitchen. It has a 2-car garage. It has 2 bathrooms and no screen porch. You're not going to be selling for the same price per square foot because you don't have the same features. And so we back all of those features out when we do the square footage adjustment, and then we deal with those features later. We individually add them back into the property if they have them. So for example, it might look like the house is $500 difference in square footage, and so we might say, okay, we're going to give you $50 a square foot for those 500 square feet, and that's the adjustment we're going to make, not for the whole property. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So you're saying that I can't take a price per square footage for one of these houses that we're driving past right here.
And apply it to some condo next door? No. No, you can't. Let's see what Zillow and Redfin have to say about my house. Okay, so Zillow says that my home's worth $637,000 and Redfin says it's worth $576,000. Redfin found 6 comparable properties and Zillow found 5. When I look at their lists of properties and do that basic square footage adjustment, it gets me to within 4,200 of the Redfin estimate, but 22,000 of the Zillow's estimate.
22,000?
Yeah.
So Zillow's doing a little bit more than Redfin is. Redfin's just doing a straight square footage adjustment, but Zillow's got something else going on.
That's what it looks like. So that's pretty much where everybody starts, but this is where they start to run off the rails a little bit, and we start to see those limitations of AI doing these pricing models.
Oh, hey.
Hey, good to see you. So I want to circle back to finding the right comps, because I feel like we haven't really addressed that. That's a really important part of getting the right price. When you're looking for a comparable property, you really need to choose something that other buyers that would be, or that the buyers that would be looking at your home would also be looking at. So to know if it's really a comp, you have to say a buyer that would walk through my house will also walk through that house. For example, you can't use a 1,000 square foot home as a comp for a 3,000 square foot home, even if they're next door to each other, because the person that's looking at that 1,000 square foot home is probably not also looking for a 3,000 square foot home.
What about style of a home?
Yeah, it also, I mean, personally, I don't like to use a 1-level home as a comp for a 2-level home, even if they're right next door to each other, because a lot of times somebody that's looking at a 1-level home, they won't actually consider a 2-level home. So again, you're looking at very different markets, and you just have to make sure that those comps are similar to what your house is. And there is flexibility here. Like, for example, I probably would use a 1-level home if it was in the neighborhood and it was the only other property available. Like if there was nothing else to choose from that had sold, I would use it, but I'd take it with a big grain of salt, because the more different your comps are from your property, the less reliable the pricing is. So you can use it, but your pricing's less reliable. You don't really know, is it going to sell for that? So let's look at why Redfin and Zillow came up with such different comps. They came up with a completely different list. Redfin had more comps, but they were also not even the same houses. So they both chose this one. I think this is a fantastic comp, although there's a couple differences I would probably adjust for, but it's really close in proximity. They have similar exterior features. The interior finishes are inferior, but I still think it's a really good comp, because I definitely think that anybody looking at my home would also be looking at this one. They also both used this property. Now, this one I actually don't love as a comp, and the reason I don't love it is because this section of the neighborhood, the lots are about half the size as all the other comps and as our property. And so
it's smaller than ours?
It's a lot smaller than ours. It's basically 0 lot lines. And so anybody that would be moving into this home or considering this home, if they had dogs, if they had kids, they'd probably look at it and say, there's literally no yard. It really lives like a townhouse.
So what do you think is behind the choosing of different comps?
Okay, well, we're going to look at comps that were exclusive to both companies, and I think a key idea in their programming of their algorithm kind of comes out in this next set of comps that we're going to look at. So Redfin has 3 homes in their comp list that closed within the last month, and Zillow did not use the recently closed comps, but they did use 2 homes that closed almost a year ago.
Which is not normal.
Not normal at all. I definitely understand why Redfin is going to choose those 30-day-old comps. It makes perfect sense. They are the most recently sold comps. It makes sense to use them. But why would Zillow use comps that are a year old?
It's the old closet ploy at play.
Oh my gosh. But both of those comps that we were looking at there kind of show another limitation of the AI. So we're going to look at that next. One of the comps that Redfin used sold within the last month, and on the surface it appears to be a really, really good comp. It sold less than a month ago. It's similar in size. It's right in my neighborhood. It's even on my street, but it's a terrible comp.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, that one. So what Redfin didn't know about this house is 1 door over from this house, there was some major construction going on. So right outside of our neighborhood, so this house is 1 door down in our neighborhood, and right outside of our neighborhood, they're putting in a roundabout. They've dug up the entire street. They dug up the entire entrance to our neighborhood. It's a mess. and even as far down as this house, there's orange stuff all over the place and constant like construction, or the stuff they put the little like flags or construction-y stuff.
All right.
If you were going to buy that house, you could see how it would definitely sit for longer and sell for less. And it's interesting because the people who sold that house actually sold it to Open Door.
Right.
And then it sat on the market for
like 120 days.
120 days, like months. It sat on the market when everything else in that area went under contract within a week. So that was definitely not a good comp. It was an extenuating circumstance. And, our house, yes, is in the same neighborhood, but it's way far away from all of that stuff. And so it would not be impacted by it.
So basically they were using something like a crisis sale as a comp.
Exactly.
But they don't know that it was that.
Right, because the algorithm can't see. Now, I do think these algorithms will get sensitive enough to be able to, have pictures of the area around and see stuff like that. But apparently they're not doing it yet.
Zillow didn't choose that comp.
Yeah, no, Zillow did not choose that comp. They chose instead those two older comps. One was 10 months past its sale and one was 12 months past its sale. And what you need to know about what's happening here.
Nothing.
Oh.
It's the city.
But it's a dust storm. What is this, Oklahoma?
It's wind and construction.
Okay. Anyway, what you need to know about Zillow is they are a marketing company. You think they're a tech company, you think they're a real estate company, they're actually a marketing company.
All right, explain that.
They have created a tool that is valuable to people. And I am not the sort of person to bash Zillow. I think what they've made is incredible. And I think the Association of Realtors should have made it a long time ago, but they were too busy holding on to all of their data to keep people from, using it and having to need realtors that they didn't do it. I think that's a crime and that should not have happened, and I'm glad that Zillow did it. However, it is a tool to be able to sell your information to realtors. So they want you to click. You click on a property and they say, hey, you want to see it? We'll set you up with a realtor. The realtor pays them a fee for sending you to them, and that's what it's for. And so accuracy is not its best strength, and this is really revealed in something that happened. This happens actually all the time. We'll have people that call that'll say, "Hey, I saw this on Zillow," and I'll look it up in the MLS and be like, "That property is sold or it's under contract," and they'll say, "No, it's active. Zillow's showing it active." I'm like, "Yes, Zillow's showing it active because it is a fantastic property, and if they have a really good property in a really great location that's staged really nicely, that gets 10 times more clicks than everything else on the Zillow site, they're not going to mark it as sold when it sells because they want those clicks, because then they're going to send you to a realtor. The realtor is going to help you buy a home, not that home, a different home, but they're still going to make money off of it." So they have about 20 to 30% of the properties on Zillow are not accurately
So what you're saying is that Zillow did not use that comp, not because they were smarter and knew that it was a distressed sale, but because it was
too low.
Too low, and it would have messed up our...
They wanted our property to be worth more than it actually was, so we will call and say, "Hey, I might like to list my property."
All right.
That's it. That's the closet ploy.
Well, until we meet again in the Kessel Silver.
The older properties that they used were a lot more expensive, and it really, one of them was $745,000 for a home that was a similar size to ours, and so it really did bring up the price. Now, it wasn't a great comp, but they used it anyway.
So older comps, but more expensive.
Older comps, but more expensive. Yep. Now we're going to look at one final limitation of the AI. Redfin used one comp that it's about the same size and it's actually pretty close in location, but they just really missed the boat on this one. But before we get on to that, I want to point out that in the description of this video, I've got several links that I think you're going to find really valuable if you're thinking of selling or buying a home in the Raleigh area. I've got a whole list of articles that I've written about preparing your home for sale and things that you need to know before you sell and before you buy. And we've got some incredible search options on our website to find your new home. And we also have a link to our newsletter in the description, so take a look at that. Okay, so there's another comp that Redfin used that I think shows us another limitation of the AI pricing model, and that's the quality of the construction. So they used this particular comp, and this is what I call a production builder. And a production builder means that they're producing a lot of homes very quickly. So these are generally entry-level type houses. They're building a lot of them. They're pushing them out quickly. Our home and the homes surrounding it are custom homes. So in the production home, it's got vinyl siding. It's got popcorn ceilings. They use those popcorn ceilings to cover over drywall jobs that are done quickly. It doesn't have trim. It doesn't have, a nice fireplace. It doesn't have a screen porch. It doesn't have a lot of the upgrades that you get in custom homes. And they used it anyway just because the square footage and the location were close enough that it looked like a comp to the AI, but it wasn't really a comp.
All right, so Redfin took the recent comps. One was a distressed type of sale, which they didn't know. The other they used wasn't actually a good comp because it was a production house versus a custom house, but they were recent. And Zillow's just using older stuff that's always more expensive.
I don't know if they do it all the time, but that's what they did in this case. And I also want to say about the production house, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those. I mean, they provide a really important need for affordable housing. Our first home was a production home. It's very common for entry-level housing to be that way, or just affordable housing in general, and it's totally fine. But you can't use it as a comp for a custom built home. So in this case, I think both of the AI prices are wrong. I think Zillow is way too high, and I think Redfin is way too low. So let's look at which comps I would have used and how I would have adjusted them to get the right price. So I would have used comps 1, 3, and 5 from Redfin's list, and then I would have added in comp 1 from Zillow's list. The adjustments that I would make, so one property had a completely new kitchen, so I want to take off some price for that because ours doesn't have a new kitchen. A couple of them had some really big yards. I mean, our yard is not 0 lot lines, it's a 1/4 acre lot, but it wasn't as big as some of those just massive yards. So I made an adjustment for that. But other than that, they were all pretty similar. And the Redfin price was $40,000 too low from what I would have listed it at. And the Zillow price was $20,000 too high for what I would have listed it at.
So we both were right.
Who?
You, me.
We were both right?
Yeah. You said Zillow was too high. I said Redfin was too low.
Yeah, I guess we were both right. Who would have thought? So if you like this video and you want us to do more videos like this, I want you to leave a comment and tell us what you liked best about the video, because these take a lot of time to shoot and edit. They're a lot of fun, but if you like them, we want to know why so we can do more like that.
And where we should go.
Yeah, and where we should go next. Like what do you want us to do next?